Mrs. Ugojo, an elegant woman from the city, traveling to her husband's village Ebu. Her car arrives through the dusty roads, eventually stopping at Ketu's family's house. Mrs. Ugojo had promised to help the poor families in the village, and she has taken a special interest in Ketu's mother, a widow who is struggling to care for her 3 children. Mrs. Ugojo assures her that if Ketu comes with her to the city, she will treat her like family and ensure she gets a good education. Ketu's mother, desperate to give her daughter a better future, tearfully agrees, trusting Mrs. Ugojo's words. Soon after, Ketu leaves a humble home with dreams of schools and a better life, unaware of the hardship ahead. When she arrives at Mrs. Ugojo's mansion in the city, her world shifts. The promises of education and care quickly fade away. Ketu is assigned endless household chores, while Mrs. Ugojo's children, Enojo, Kenile, and Elwojo, treat her like a servant, not a friend or equal. Mrs. Ugojo turns a blind eye to the children's cruelty, making Ketu handle their schoolwork while they play. Ketu helps with their homework, even though they mock her lack of formal education, while Enojo, Kenile, and Elwojo are spoiled and careless. Ketu's hunger for knowledge only grew stronger. In secret, she starts studying their school books late at night, determined to learn despite the broken promises made to her. Ketu remains silently resilient, knowing she has no other choice. She continues to endure Mrs. Ugojo's neglect and the torment from her children. One fateful day, Ketu witnessed Mrs. Ugojo's true character. She overhears her telling her friend, Mrs. Chidinma, that she never had any intention of sending her to school. Ketu realized she had been deceived, but instead of giving up, she becomes more determined than ever to succeed, silently planning her future and vowing not to go back empty to her mother. Ketu had come to the house as a quiet, hopeful girl full of dreams. She barely dared to speak aloud, but her life there soon became filled with cold command and unkind words. Mrs. Ugojo's children mocked her clothes and laughed at her accent, reminding her that she was just a servant. She often watched as they ate ground meals, while she had to scrap by on whatever was left over. Most times she's made to do their homework as if her own learning didn't matter. Then one day, someone recognized Ketu's potential. An unexpected guest, perhaps a family friend, visiting relatives, saw her reading alone in the dim light of her small room. Impressed by her intelligence and dedication, the visitor offered to sponsor her education, but Mrs. Ugojo refused, saying she's just a maid. But her friend Mrs. Uju stood by her decision, knowing how spoiled her friend's kids were, opening a door Ketu never thought would be possible. With this lifeline, Ketu realized she could escape from the life of servitude and for the first time tasted what her future could hold. As the years passed, each of the one boastful children fell into their own kind of trouble, unable to handle the responsibility that came with adulthood. The eldest, Enojo, had always been the pride of the family. Smart, talented, he was given everything he could have wanted, from tutors to opportunities, but his confidence turned into arrogance. He became known for his quick temper, eventually leading him into a life of aggressive behavior. One night, his anger flared up and he was involved in a serious altercation that left him facing assault charges. His charm, which has once charmed his friends and teachers, wasn't enough to shield him from the consequences. His family wealth couldn't buy him out of every situation. The once promising Ene faced the bleak reality of his actions. The second child, Elwojo, had a different downfall. He was a rebellious one, always keeping the rules and testing his boundaries. His taste for thrills led him into gambling and petty theft, habits that spiraled into a debt he couldn't pay. He thought he could get away with small cons and mischief, but as the stake grew, so did the risk. One day he gambled on a deal that fell through. leaving him unable to pay back the money. Now the creditors threatened his safety. He was desperate, turning to his family to bail him out. But the family was already stretched thin, and for the first time, Elojo had to face his problem alone. The youngest, Kenile, had been the favorite, the sweet girl who everyone doted on, but that favorism bred entitlement. As she got older, she spent recklessly relying on her family's wealth to fund her lifestyle. She fell in with a crowd that valued appearance over substance, indulging in luxuries and living beyond her means. Her family was forced to cover her escalating debts and legal fines when her lifestyle spiraled into fraud charges, putting an unbearable strain on the family's resources. Kenile's self-destruct habits weren't only breaking the family bank, but breaking their spirit too. With each child facing their own crisis, the household that once boasted of wealth and privilege was crumbling under the weight of their mistake. Ketu, who had once been looked down upon by the same siblings, watched from a distance as the family struggled to clean up the damage. In a twist of fate, she was now the one with a future full of promises, while the family that once despised her fell deeper into chaos. Now an educated young woman with strength and confidence, Ketu felt a sense of justice she never expected to find. As she prepared to leave her old life behind, she did so without a hint of resentment that had once consumed her. The family, who had been quick to ignore her, now faced the wreckage of their own choices, while Ketu's future was bright. Ketu, now in her office, going through some work, while her phone just rang. It was a call from her former boss, a voice trembling with desperation, begging her for help now that they have lost everything. What will Ketu do